All right, hi, Mr. Showalter. So, I guess I'll just go through and run the code. We're gonna start with reverse sentiment that is just gonna make positive to a negative, and then amplify positivity is going to make a positive review to a more positive review, and same thing for amplify negativity. And our string is a negative string, negative review at the moment. So I'm just going to comment that out for now, and zero sentiment is going to make the value 0. So I'll run that, and you can see that after it runs, it returns a positive value for initially negative strings, and it's making those negative statements more negative, and it's also making neutral reviews. So if we go through, you can see that it uses different adjectives throughout, and kind of there's a fun variation that happens because I use a random method that I've defined here. So I'll show you how that works later. I've gone through data sets of nouns, adverbs, verbs, and made array list with those, and I've initialized those below here. So, yeah, I will just go through, yeah, this is where I initialize them, if you'd like to see that. You can pause the video. So yeah, we'll go through and find reverse sentiment because that was the first one I worked on. So this is going to find if you need a more negative review or more positive review. And accordingly, it's going to say if we want a more positive review, then it's going to, if the total sentiment of the initial string is less than 0, then it's going to say that we need a positive review. So that's what this code does. It's not going to stop until it has a positive review. Ugly review is that new positive review. I've just recycled that variable name. You can ignore that it's a negative variable name. Yeah. So you've seen this construction while it contains a space and then redefining that original string. You can pause the video to see how it works more in depth, but the main difference between what it does here versus what it does here is this logic. So that new word, as it iterates through the string, we're either finding a word that is greater than that adjective or a word that is less than that adjective. So that's the only difference between these two methods. And you can go through and see those for yourself, pause the video at any of those if you would like. So continuing on to these. So this is just a shortcut for me to say if something, the word that I'm referencing in a later method is an adjective, is a noun, is any part of speech that I want. That's just a shortcut for this statement. So I've gone ahead and gone through and defined separate methods for those just to make it a little bit more quick and easy for me to think about. So this is going to find, it's going to find words. So if you have a sentiment value, the input is, let's say it is 0.1. So I want a word with a sentiment value of 0.1, it's going to be able to do that by going through the value of the hash map sentiment, which is this. This is the key and this is the value. So I'm sure you probably know somewhat how that works. If it's going to iterate through that, and if the value equals the value that we're trying to find, then it's going to add that by using the getKey method to our list that we defined earlier. When we return a word, when we want, because we're only finding a single word with that sentiment value, so it's going to get a random word from that list using rand that we defined above right here, if you'd like to see that. So, yeah, I went ahead and did that for nouns, verbs, all the parts of speech. Now we have a method that finds either lesser than sentiment value, a word with a lesser sentiment value, sorry, or a greater sentiment value. So if it's true, we want a greater sentiment value, greater sentiment, lesser sentiment, false. And these are the methods. I've just gone ahead and made it a method with 2 parameters just to make that quicker and make the code a little bit shorter because it is getting a little long. So that just works by going through, defining an empty list again. It's going through sentiment, and for all of these conditions, it's going to say, okay, positivity, you know, are we finding a negative or positive? And then is it a verb that we're trying to find? If it's negative, then we need a key value that is, a value that is less than the sentiment value of the original word, and it's going to get that key accordingly, and inversely, same thing, and it's going to return null if it's negative. So again, I went through and did that for all the parts of speech. So amplify positivity, that's going to return a string that's more positive than an already positive initial positive value string, and amplify negativity now is going to do the inverse. So we've gone through and again just defined 2 parameters to make that a little bit shorter. So we start out with that same construction of the while loop, and I go through and if that's not an adjective, the word that we've isolated by iterating through each word, if it is not an adjective, then we just go ahead and add it to the list with its punctuation, which we've done there, and then yeah, it's going to define the original string without that word, and it's going to continue. So if it can't find, oh, sorry, I skipped something. So this is I'm not sure if you've seen this construction with the question mark, but it's defining new adjective. It's going to go through and say, okay, now that we know that it's not an adjective, we possibly need to replace this word. So if positivity is true, then we need to find an adjective with a greater sentiment, and else we need to find an adjective with a lesser sentiment. So yeah, it's gonna add that to the string at the end. If it's null, again, we just add it straight to the string and continue. Null would mean that we can't find an adjective with that value, and we'll just go ahead and add it because it doesn't have a value, so that's not going to contribute to the sentiment value of the string. So if it has a value, then great, we can go ahead and add it to the string as well. And then that's just going to iterate through again until we have a new string. Sorry, I've gone ahead of myself. So, yeah, as you can see, I have those two parameters and it works like that. Let me know if you have any questions. I can take a pause if you want to see how that works. So zero sentiment now. This is going to work by iterating through the string as well, like the two previous methods. And so it's going to say if that word that we're iterating through, if that individual word has a sentiment value of 0, then we know it's not on the list. It doesn't matter. We can just add it to the string, and it's not going to contribute to a value for that string. This is just another way to check, okay, if we don't have a key for that word in clean sentiment.csv, then it doesn't have a value. So that's just another way to check for whether or not a word has a sentiment value for it. And we can get that logic out of the way, say continue, continue, and then it'll loop back, and that makes the code a little bit quicker, I think. Now that we've gone through that, we can, the statement is just the original statement. So yeah, we'll just this is just again the same thing that we've done. I think you understand that. This is just going through. This isn't actually replacing words. Sorry, that's why I got a little bit confused for a sec. But this method isn't actually replacing words. It's determining whether we have an even or odd amount of words using this logic right here once it's gone through. So it's only finding the amount of words with sentiment values. So if you have an even amount of words with sentiment values, that makes your life way easier in making the sentiment value, the total sentiment value of the string equal to 0. And if we have an odd amount of words that we need to replace, that makes it a little bit harder. So yeah, if we want to find out that it's just an even amount of words, then we can go through and, again, this is our logic checking. If we have a key, it'll add the word to the list right there. And then, so word replaced. This is a Boolean that helps the computer iterate through, so let's just say we have this string right here, this string only, the highlighted portion, the rest you can ignore. So the only adjectives in this statement are terrible and chewy. So terrible, let's say it has a value of -1, chewy. Now we want to replace chewy, right? So we're going to find an replace Chewy with an adjective um, with a value that is equal to 1, and that'll zero out the sentence. So that's what this is checking for. If we haven't replaced a word, then we can just go ahead and add it right to the string. But that's also going to make word replaced equal to true, so that we know if the next word needs to be replaced. So since I have continue here, which is shortcutting the logic, I think it makes it a little bit faster. I may be wrong. Um, Let me know if you don't like that, if that's confusing for you on future projects. So if the so it's gone through and said, okay, we don't need to replace that word. Else, new word now. Okay, we need to replace it. So if it's a noun, if it's a verb, if it's an adjective, we're using these find adjective with sentiment, find any part of speech with an inverse sentiment. Yeah. Let me know if that makes sense. Feel free to pause for any of this stuff if you would like. Um, so now if we want to find an odd amount of words, that is obviously going to leave a word hanging at the end of that string. And I've gone ahead and created a new method to find that last word. This is really drawn out. There's probably a shorter way to do it. But it goes ahead and returns the last word with a sentiment for keeping this a little bit on the shorter side, hopefully. I'm just going to go ahead and say if you'd like to pause here and read through it, that's okay. I know it works, and it works really similarly to the previous method that I've just gone through. So I'm just going to go ahead and explain what it does if we need to find an odd amount of words. Again, it's setting that word equal to that specific word that we need to replace. So this is actually making a shortcut here, as you can see. We're just recycling that. We're just recycling this method right here, and saying, okay, what word do we need to replace? That's basically what it's doing. We're finding where the index of that word begins and where it ends, so that we can go through and find new words to replace it with. So again, this is just going through, and this is more involved with the grammar, and we're finding the right part of speech to replace. So, and it's just making sure it's the correct grammar. If you'd like to pause and look at that, you can go through, and see, but I'm assuming you know how English grammar works. Obviously, this algorithm is not perfect, but it's gonna be able to give you, a decent amount of variety in your sentences that are relatively simple. So yeah, since this is approaching the 20-minute mark, and it is about the end, I'll just show you, since I commented out this method, because this is a negative statement that we're starting with, so I'll just go ahead and show you, let's say we have a positive value that we're starting with, so that you can see that that works, and also with reverse sentiment, so just showing you that reverse sentiment and reverse positivity will work. if we have a positive initial string, so we can actually just go ahead and copy this previous value from positive review, or reverse sentiment that we used on this initially positive review right here, or initially negative review. Now it's an initially positive review that we're starting with. So yeah, I'm not going to go and replace the punctuation, just for time's sake. Go ahead and run it. Okay, so as you can see, it's reversing the sentiment here successfully, and it is also able to make that more positive. So, thank you so much. I'm sorry this was a little bit drawn out. Please do not hesitate to email me this weekend. If you have any questions, I will get back to you as soon as possible. I just want to make sure you understand my code, and that everything is working. So yeah, thank you for watching.